Death is usually tragic, but sometimes it's just plain bizarre. So bizarre, it sounds like something out of a comedy sketch or urban legend. In this video, we're diving into 5 real cases of the most ridiculous, unexpected, and downright unbelievable deaths. Buckle up, because these strange exits prove that truth really is stranger than fiction. It was February 2025 in Planalto, Brazil, a quiet town where 14-year-old Davi Nunes Moreira was just your average teenager. Think energy, mischief, and a healthy obsession with the weird corners of the internet. Davi was curious, adventurous, and always on the hunt for something new. But one bold experiment would turn his story from quirky to tragic in the blink of an eye. At first glance, nothing seemed out of the ordinary. Davi was active, loved hanging out with friends, and could usually be found outside instead of glued to a screen. So, when he came home limping one day, his father figured it was just another day of roughhousing. Davi casually brushed it off. Just a minor injury from playing around, he said. But that limp didn't go away. In fact, things got worse. Nausea set in. Walking became a struggle. Alarms started ringing, with his symptoms snowballing. His father rushed him to the local hospital, but the doctors were baffled. His condition was deteriorating and no one could pinpoint why. So, he was transferred to Vitória da Conquista General Hospital for more specialized care. That's when Davi dropped a bombshell no one saw coming. In a moment of painful honesty, he revealed to the medical team that he had conducted an experiment, and not the baking soda volcano kind. This one involved a dead butterfly, some water, and a syringe. He had crushed the butterfly, mixed it into a liquid, and injected it into his leg. Why? That part remained murky. Some speculated he was inspired by an online trend or dared by something he saw on social media. Others thought it might have just been an act of unchecked curiosity gone terribly wrong. The confession left everyone, from doctors to internet users, stunned. Experts quickly started weighing in. Some suspected that toxins from the butterfly, especially if it was something like a monarch, might have entered his bloodstream. Others considered more medical culprits: an embolism from air in the syringe, a severe allergic reaction, or a dangerous infection. But the mystery deepened when Davi's father, searching for clues at home, found the syringe tucked under his son's pillow. A piece of evidence that only raised more questions. Despite every effort by the hospital staff, Davi's body couldn't recover. He fought for 7 days but ultimately passed away. The autopsy results are still pending, and doctors continue to debate the exact cause. Whether it was the toxins, the injection itself, or some lethal combination. Naturally, once Davi's story hit the internet, it spread like wildfire. People were shocked, confused, and heartbroken. Many blamed online culture, saying social media had become a breeding ground for risky stunts. Why are kids doing such dangerous things? One commenter asked. Another simply wrote, "He was just a kid." They don't think about consequences, only the moment. But here's the twist. Davi himself denied being part of any internet trend. According to him, this wasn't a viral challenge gone wrong. It was his own idea, which, in a way, makes the story even more haunting. Was this the tragic result of innocent scientific curiosity? Or did something darker play a role? Cases like Davi's aren't isolated. From salt and ice challenges to bug-eating dares, young people across the globe have landed in hospitals. Or worse, thanks to poorly thought-out experiments. One influencer even almost lost her toes to a freezing stunt gone sideways. Butterfly expert Professor Marcelo Duarte noted that while butterfly fluids aren't well researched, injecting them directly into your body? Yeah, not a great idea. At the end of the day, Davi's story is a painful reminder that one moment of curiosity can have irreversible consequences. Whether it was a tragic accident or the result of online influence, it serves as a wake-up call. Curiosity is wonderful, but it should never come with a needle. Let's hope this tale becomes a lesson. Not just for kids, but for all of us who've ever thought, what's the worst that could happen? On January 14, 2009, in Shaoxing, China, 14-year-old Xiaogang was doing something completely ordinary, just sitting at his computer, maybe gaming, maybe studying, maybe scrolling through memes. Who knows? What we do know is that one small adjustment to his chair set off a chain of events so bizarre, so tragic, it sounds like something from a Final Destination movie. You see, Xiaogang was using a standard swivel chair, the kind you'll find in almost every office or home study. It had a gas spring mechanism, which allows you to adjust the height with the simple pull of a lever. Super convenient, right? Well, not on this day. As Xiaogang reached down to tweak the chair height, disaster struck. The gas spring inside the chair suddenly failed. But this wasn't a slow leak or a harmless pop. Nope, this was a full-on explosion. The pressurized gas cylinder ruptured violently, launching the metal rod inside the chair straight up with deadly force. And tragically, it struck Xiaogang in a sensitive and critical area, causing severe internal injuries. Despite the unimaginable pain, Xiaogang managed to grab his phone and call his father, explaining what had happened. His dad rushed home, likely expecting a minor injury, maybe a cut or a bruise. But what he found was every parent's nightmare. Xiaogang was conscious, but in critical condition. Paramedics arrived and quickly transported him to the hospital, but the damage was just too extensive. Despite every effort from the medical team, he didn't make it. The cause of death? Massive internal bleeding from a completely unexpected source, his desk chair. An investigation later confirmed that the culprit was a defective gas spring inside the chair. Instead of containing safe, high-pressure nitrogen, like quality gas springs should, this one had been filled with regular air. Sounds like a minor detail, but that shortcut led to unstable pressure buildup and eventually an explosion. The spring wasn't just faulty, it was a ticking time bomb. And here's the scary part. This wasn't the first time something like this had happened. Just over a year earlier, in November 2007, a 68-year-old man was seriously injured when his own chair's gas spring malfunctioned. Shards of metal burst out and lodged into his body, causing painful injuries and a long road to recovery. He survived, but the message was clear. These weren't isolated incidents. They were signs of a bigger problem. Investigators found that many office chairs, especially low-cost ones, were being made with substandard materials and little to no quality control. In a bid to cut costs, some manufacturers skipped certifications, used the improper components, and hoped no one would notice. Most of the time, no one did, until it was too late. Xiaogang's grieving parents were devastated. They called for justice and accountability, believing, rightfully, that if the chair had been made with proper safety standards, their son would still be alive. Their plea sparked a national conversation about consumer safety, especially in the often overlooked world of office furniture. Experts and safety organizations chimed in, urging stricter regulations and better awareness. They warned buyers to be cautious of unknown brands and cheap knockoffs, and pushed for mandatory certifications to prevent such tragedies. So, was Xiaogang's death a freak accident? Maybe, but it was also the result of cutting corners, ignored warnings, and lax oversight. His story is more than just a cautionary tale. It's a gut-wrenching reminder that even the most everyday items can turn deadly if built without care. Next time you adjust your office chair, you'll probably think of Xiaogang, and maybe, just maybe, check the label first. On April 19, 2023, in Alwar, India, an accident occurred that sounds so outlandish, it could pass for a dark comedy sketch, if only it weren't real. It involved a high-speed train, a stray cow, and a retired electrician who became the unluckiest bystander in one of the most bizarre tragedies in recent memory. Shivdayal Sharma, 82, was no stranger to the railway tracks. After all, he'd worked for Indian Railways for decades before retiring 22 years ago. On that fateful day, he was near the Kalwar Gate area of Alwar, a place he knew like the back of his hand. What he didn't know was that death was about to arrive, not by train, but by cow. Yes, you read that right. The Vande Bharat Express, one of India's sleekest, fastest trains, was barreling down the tracks at about 160 kilometers per hour. That's 100 miles per hour for the metrically challenged when a stray cow wandered onto the rails. What happened next defies belief. The train struck the cow with such force that the animal was launched into the air, reportedly flying nearly 100 feet. Unfortunately, gravity took the worst turn imaginable. The airborne cow crashed directly into Sharma, killing him instantly. Another man nearby barely escaped, shaken but unharmed. Sharma, however, stood no chance. One moment, he was simply standing by the tracks. The next, gone in a freak accident that left even seasoned authorities stunned. The incident sent shockwaves through the community and quickly made headlines. How could such a thing even happen? As strange as it seems, it wasn't entirely unpredictable. Stray cattle on Indian railway tracks are a known hazard, especially in rural and semi-urban areas. Cows roam freely, often crossing tracks to graze or wander, completely unaware that a high-speed train might be heading their way. In most cases, it's the animal that meets a tragic end. But in rare and horrifying instances like this, innocent people nearby suffer the consequences. Authorities responded swiftly. Sharma's body was recovered, sent for post-mortem, and returned to his grieving family for last rites. Meanwhile, the Indian Railway Ministry launched an investigation and vowed to take stronger action to prevent similar tragedies. Railway Minister Ashwini Vaishnaw announced new safety initiatives, including the installation of metal fencing along key rail corridors to keep animals off the tracks. Clearing garbage and overgrown vegetation, things that attract stray animals, was also prioritized. In fact, a massive 620-kilometer fencing project was already underway along the Mumbai-Ahmedabad route. While these steps are commendable, many couldn't help but wonder, what if these measures had come sooner? Could Sharma have been saved if the fencing had been installed in Alwar before April? Was this an entirely avoidable death? The sad truth is that a cow becoming a deadly projectile is something no one prepares for. And yet, the laws of physics don't discriminate. Combine mass, velocity, and bad luck, and you get tragedy. The story spread like wildfire online, with people expressing disbelief. Killed by a flying cow, one commenter wrote. Sounds like a twisted joke, but it wasn't. It was the end of an elderly man's quiet life in the most unexpected way possible. So, what can we take from this? Maybe just a deeper respect for life's randomness. One day, you're enjoying a walk by the tracks. The next, you're a headline that no one can believe is real. Shiv Dayal Sharma's story is not just a freak accident, it's a wake-up call. A call to act faster, fence smarter, and maybe, just maybe, look both ways for flying cows. In the blistering heat of a summer day in 2021, a 22-year-old man in China reached for something many of us turn to when we're melting under the sun, a cold, fizzy drink. But instead of sipping it casually, he guzzled down 1.5 liters of Coca-Cola in just 10 minutes, a choice that would prove to be tragically fatal. Healthy, young, and with no known medical issues, he likely didn't think twice. After all, who dies from drinking soda? 6 hours later, he arrived at Beijing's Chaoyang Hospital in agonizing pain. His stomach was bloated, his breathing was rapid, his blood pressure had plummeted, and his heart was racing. Clear signs that something had gone very, very wrong. But even seasoned doctors weren't prepared for what they saw next. A CT scan revealed an alarming amount of gas trapped not only in his intestines but also in his portal vein, a major vessel that shuttles blood from the digestive system to the liver. This rare condition, called pneumatosis, is as dangerous as it sounds. It can block oxygen-rich blood from reaching the liver, leading to something ominously dubbed shock liver, or hepatic ischemia. In simple terms, his liver was suffocating. Normally, excess gas finds a way out through a burp or, well, the other end. But in this case, the rapid Coca-Cola binge produced gas so quickly that it had nowhere to go. Under extreme pressure, some of that gas was forced into places it definitely didn't belong, wreaking havoc on his insides. Doctors jumped into action. They tried everything: anti-inflammatory medications, IV fluids, and techniques to relieve the pressure. But the damage was already snowballing. Within 12 hours, tests showed his liver was failing, and by the 18-hour mark, it was too late. His body gave out, and he passed away shortly after arriving. The case was later published in the Clinics and Research in Hepatology and Gastroenterology Journal, where medical professionals scratched their heads. It was a first-of-its-kind tragedy, soda-induced liver failure from gas overload. Still, not everyone's convinced the Coca-Cola alone was to blame. Professor Nathan Davies, a biochemist at University College London, voiced skepticism. He suggested the possibility of an undiagnosed bacterial infection, one that could have produced excessive internal gas and made things worse. If that's the case, the soda was the final spark in a gas-filled powder keg. Was it the Coca-Cola? Was there an underlying condition? Nobody can say for sure, but this stomach-turning story has stirred up some serious conversation about just how quickly we consume fizzy drinks. Let's be real. Millions of people chug soda every day without dropping dead. But this rare and extreme case shows that under the right or wrong circumstances, even something as familiar as a soft drink can turn deadly. Could he have survived if he'd taken his time, sipping instead of slamming it down? Possibly. Would smaller sips have given his body a chance to handle the carbonation? Maybe. But like many medical mysteries, this one might never have a definitive answer. What's left behind is a chilling reminder. Our bodies aren't built to process extremes well, even when those extremes come in the form of something as seemingly harmless as a bottle of Coke. So next time you're tempted to beat the heat by downing a liter and a half of soda in one go, maybe just don't. Your stomach, liver, and portal veins will thank you. On the evening of April 25, 2021, 29-year-old Taylor Cayley was wrapping up what seemed like a lovely night in downtown San Diego. An event planner with a bright smile and an even brighter future, she had just finished a dinner date at Basic Bar and Pizza in the East Village. She and her date, Alex, were strolling down the street near the Padres Parkade parking garage, carrying leftovers, chatting and laughing. Just two people enjoying the early spring evening. But at 7:23 p.m., the unimaginable happened. As they crossed the street at 10th Avenue and J Street, tragedy, quite literally, fell from the sky. 9 stories above, Christian Anders, a man in his early 20s, stood on the edge of the parking structure. Struggling with mental health issues, he had reached out to his mother earlier in the day, overwhelmed and in despair. In a heartbreaking moment, he jumped. He fell directly onto Taylor. The impact was instantaneous. She had no chance to react. Alex, just inches away, was unharmed physically but watched helplessly as Taylor collapsed beside him. Emergency responders rushed to the scene, but she was pronounced dead there. Anders was taken to the hospital and later died from his injuries. The freak accident left San Diego stunned. Taylor had been just days away from celebrating her 30th birthday. She had planned a wine-tasting trip to Temecula with friends, and her father Kent was going to drive. Her life was full of excitement, plans, and the kind of love that comes from being deeply connected to her family, her friends, and her work. Professionally, Taylor had spent nearly a decade at McFarland Promotions, rising from intern to event manager. Her boss, Laurel McFarland, said Taylor wasn't just an employee, she was like family. She was dependable, kind, and full of life, McFarland said. She was truly special. During the pandemic, Taylor had moved back in with her dad to help care for him through health issues. Their bond was the kind of father-daughter connection people talk about with admiration. She adored her dad, and he adored her, McFarland recalled. Taylor's 2 rescue dogs, Rue and Stella, whom she had adopted from Tijuana, were beloved companions she often brought to work. After her passing, her father took them in, continuing the love she had given them. As for Christian Anders, his story is a quieter tragedy. Though he had reached out to his mother that day, the depth of his struggle remained mostly invisible until it was too late. His pain ultimately ended 2 lives, his own and that of a woman full of promise. Taylor's sudden passing left friends and loved ones asking painful, unanswerable questions. What if she had taken a different street that night? Could Anders have been helped sooner? While those questions may never find resolution, Taylor Cayley is remembered for her light, her kindness, and her impact. Her life, though cut short, is a poignant reminder to cherish each moment and each other.